"We're done waiting for you to die," they told me with the same calmness one uses to discuss dinner plans. "We're done waiting for you to die," my daughter said, staring at her phone while speaking. My son didn't even look up. My wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, smiled faintly, fingers already tangled with her new boyfriend's. The oncologist's words were still echoing in my skull: terminal, aggressive, untreatable. A countdown dressed in white coats and sterile silence. They drove me to a hospital that smelled of bleach and loneliness. Not the private clinic we could afford, but a crumbling building where the paint peeled like rotting skin. They left me in a narrow bed with a cardboard box of photographs. "Enjoy the memories," she whispered, pressing a kiss to the lips of another man before leaving. The nurse was kind enough to hand me her phone. One call. I made it without hesitation. By morning, their phones were lighting up, 67 missed calls, each one unanswered, each one more frantic than the last. They didn't know who I had spoken to. They didn't understand what silence I had set in motion. And for the first time since the diagnosis, I smiled. Betrayal doesn't come in a scream. It arrives quietly, like a needle sliding beneath the skin. The divorce papers had been waiting long before the diagnosis. She'd only been waiting for the right excuse to unmask her escape. I had been useful: provider, stability, the predictable figure around whom she built her double life. The boyfriend wasn't new. He'd been at birthdays, cookouts, anniversaries. Smiling, shaking my hand, pouring drinks with the ease of a man who knew he was already inside my house in more ways than one. My children's indifference cut deeper. Their loyalty had followed her, not me. They repeated her phrases like well-trained parrots. "Move on. It's better this way. You don't have much time." The photographs they left were curated cruelty. None with me in them. Just her, just them, just the life that was now erasing me. My hand lingered over each picture. I searched for myself, some proof I existed. Nothing. That's when I understood. I wasn't family. I was a placeholder. And placeholders are disposable. Grief is a sharpener. It hones the mind. While they believed I was wasting away in a dying ward, I was planning. Calmly, quietly. The nurse thought she lent me her phone for comfort. She had no idea she had armed me. I called a man I hadn't spoken to in a decade. A man who owed me everything. He answered before the first ring ended. I didn't ask for much, just information, just clarity. Soon I had access to their messages, their bank statements, their private exchanges. Years of deception unfolded like rotten pages. My wife had been funneling money to her lover. My children had been promised trips, cars, futures, all bought with what was once mine. Even my illness had been weaponized. She called it a blessing in disguise in one message. The boyfriend replied with a laughing emoji. I read it all in silence. My pulse remained steady. No rage, no shaking hands. Just a cold acknowledgement of truth. Each night I lay in my hospital bed, rehearsing the moment. Not confrontation, revelation. They would crumble under their own weight. The results arrived in a plain envelope. DNA tests, financial records, notarized confirmations. Every thread I had pulled tied neatly into a noose. I invited them to the hospital under the guise of a farewell. They came, amused, impatient. I handed my daughter the envelope. She frowned, flipped through the documents. My son leaned over, his smirk faltering as he read. My wife took them last, her face draining of color as she reached the final page. I didn't say a word. Where did you get this?" she whispered. The boyfriend wasn't present, but his name was on every page. Payments, messages, photographs. Proof of their affair stretching back before my children were even born. Proof that one of them, maybe both, were not mine. Her hands shook. My children looked at her, then at me. For the first time, doubt cracked their rehearsed cruelty. I sat back against the thin pillow, watching them drown in silence. "I called one person," I finally said. My voice was low, steady. "Not a lawyer, not the police. Someone else." They leaned closer, desperate now. "Who?" my wife demanded, voice brittle. "You'll find out when he knocks." The weight of those words settled over them. They didn't understand yet, but they would. Every lie, every stolen coin, every betrayal would be traced, exposed, devoured. Her boyfriend's empire wasn't clean. My old friend made his living in shadows, feeding on men like him. And once the debt collectors came, once the rot was public, their little life of luxury would burn. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't threaten. I simply placed the envelope back on the table. "You wanted me gone," I said softly. "Instead, you're the ones disappearing." They left in silence. No kisses, no smug smiles. Only fear. The nurse returned, asking if I needed anything. I shook my head. I needed nothing. For the first time in years, the air around me felt clean. Not because I was free of death, it still waited patiently, but because I was free of them. I wasn't the one erased from photographs. They were. As I closed my eyes, I thought of the 67 missed calls on their phones. Desperate, unanswered, relentless. They had no idea who was on the other end. But they would, soon, and by then it would be far too late. They buried me long before I died, but now it's their turn to feel the soil close in.